The market seems to be recovering from its recent drop. John, my fiancé, although the word was still too slippery to make sense of, stood on the curb, oblivious to the bustle of people retrieving luggage from the trunks of yellow taxis and tail-finned Cadillacs. He wore his omnipresent gray flannel work suit, fingers twitching as if hovering over a calculating machine. I really think the railroad division is going to carry the rest of the market, and American Telephone and Telegraph has been performing well in recent weeks, too. You don't say. I tried to summon a single iota of interest, to recapture how endearing his stock market talk had been on Christmas Eve when we admired a shop window on Madison Avenue. How the crisp pennants of our breath in the cold air had mingled together before he'd asked me to marry him. I'd invited John to Marywood, my stepfather Hughie's second estate outside Washington, D.C., the better to convince my harridan of a mother, and me, if I was being honest, that I'd made the right decision. Instead, John spent most of the weekend debating Wall Street investments with my stepfather, while I'd retreated unnoticed to the oak-paneled study. Normally, the room's rich scent of antiquarian books and oriental carpets and tobacco was the one place I could truly relax in this home that wasn't really mine. But I verily twitched with annoyance as I flipped the pages of Sybil, a novel written by Hughie's cousin about a spirited woman who resigned herself into the necessity of marriage and thus settled into being a vegetable wife. She became humdrum and boring, like broccoli. I hated broccoli. That's it, I'd announced to my younger sister Lee, who had been christened Caroline, although no one ever called her that, as I slammed shut the book. If I marry John, I'll become one of those dull country club wives who can only converse about the progress of their children's teeth. My entire future will be spent as Sybil Husted. Lee had recently snagged a position as an editor's assistant at Harper's Bazaar, and scarcely glanced up from the magazine's latest issue, its cover touting resort fashions with a breezy blonde whose legs stretched for 5 miles beneath her cotton shorts. I thought you'd be Jacqueline Husted, she mused, waving a hand with fingernails bitten to the quick. But I suppose you can change your first name, too, if you'd like. Very bohemian. Jacqueline Husted. Not for the first time. I worried that in marrying steady, number-crunching John Grinnell Wetmore Husted, Jr., I'd be not so much settling down as settling. Not because he wasn't the gloriously wealthy New England husband my mother envisioned for me, even if his family was listed in the social register, and not because marrying him might mean bidding au revoir to trips to Paris, fox hunts with my New England friends, and my passion for journalism, but because, before I'd met John, I'd been prepping Givenchy models for a shoot on the banks of the Seine, part of my short-lived stint for an internship I'd won at Vogue, and my stern-faced editor had warned me that at 22 I was teetering on the precipice of spinsterhood's fatal abyss, and I'd felt a chill go through me. I didn't want to marry any of the young men I'd grown up with, not because of them, but because of their sedate lives. Still, had I accepted John's proposal for fear that I'd be left on the shelf? I scoffed, for surely I wasn't so mundane. Was I? I'd paced Marywood's opulent study, ready to climb the walls as my fingers drifted over the beloved leather-bound volumes that I'd read countless times. Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, Baudelaire's Les Épaves, Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, Hugo's Les Miserables. I'd cringed when my tall, supposedly urbane fiancé admitted to scarcely recognizing the first edition titles on the mahogany shelves, preferring his stock columns and account books instead. I loved books and words more than my horses. Could scarcely imagine a life devoid of stories and drama. My heroes were Mowgli, Robin Hood, little Lord Fauntleroy's grandfather, Scarlett O'Hara? Not Sybil Husted.